Humphrey Hawksley is an author, commentator, and long-standing foreign correspondent. His work as a BBC foreign correspondent has taken him all over the world. He was expelled from Sri Lanka, but he opened the BBC's television bureau in China. He was arrested in Serbia and initiated a global campaign against enslaved children in the chocolate industry, which that campaign continues today. So you can see we have a really gritty panelist to start the discussions off. Thank you, Humphrey.
Thank you. I thought I'd begin by telling you briefly about my own experience of radicalisation when I was a young man back in 1975. And at that time, it wasn't Islam against the West or whatever, it was the Cold War. And there was a proxy war going on down in Angola. And at that time, the right-wing pro-American side in Angola called UNITA were recruiting people from Britain to go and fight there. And I was a 21-year-old person just come back from travelling in London with a dreadful jaw, in dreadful accommodation, and I was looking for adventure. And there wasn't social media around then, but everybody knew that they were recruiting, and I investigated signing up for this process and got as far as being interviewed, and I had no military experience, but I was driven by the excitement of it all, and I was driven by the cause of doing something good. Luckily, I didn't go, and what happened was that the people that went ended up getting arrested or executed, and in one case, one group of young people like myself were shot dead by another group of British young people like myself because they had disobeyed orders. It was a complete chaos. But the reason that I was doing that is because I didn't feel that the system at that time, for a few months, was going to deliver for me here in Britain. Another case I'd like to give you is a young man in Sri Lanka who was a Tamil. He was 19 years old when I met him, and he was the son of the Postmaster General of Sri Lanka. Highly educated, affluent family, had everything going for him. But I met him up in Jaffna, which was the Tamil capital, just as the civil war there was beginning in the mid-80s. And he could have gone either way. He could have gone to Oxford or Harvard and had a great job as a banker. But age 19, there are different things going on in your mind. And he got caught up in that swirl of the Tamil nation, of the history, of the sort of pride of who he was and who his people were, because essentially that group up there, for a certain, didn't believe the system that was run by the Sinhalese in Sri Lanka would deliver for them. And what he did then ended up producing the most ferocious terrorist group in the world. They invented the suicide vest, they invented child soldiers in the cyanide capture, and a civil war that lasted for 25 years. I keep in touch with him. He's still alive. He killed people, he blew people up. He's now in Canada, but he can't do anything with his life because he can't travel. He's a known terrorist. He was radicalized too. And you'll notice that in both of those examples that I gave myself and him, neither of them had anything to do with Islam. Absolutely nothing. We were both young men caught up in a sort of swell of stuff. Which turns me to this dreadful word, radicalisation. It's got 6 syllables. What does it mean? It's a sort of slogan that nobody means and everybody thinks they know what it means. But what does it actually mean? In Europe, we're told that the terror threat is severe and the world has never been in so many threats before, and that there's this great threat of Islamic terror. And that is absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. The terror in Europe was far worse during the Cold War and during the sectarian conflicts in Spain and Northern Ireland. That is when we were losing dozens or hundreds of people a year. This so-called threat of Islamic terror, including a 50-year-old man disgruntled with his life who drives across Westminster Bridge, as tragic as it is not the threat that is being made out to be by the authorities. In the past 10 years, there's been 1.4 deaths a year by terror in Britain, compared to 18 deaths a year caused by dogs. So why are we building this up so much? Since 1970, there have been 350,000 deaths around the world through terror, much of it in Africa and the Middle East. 6,400 of those are in Europe. Before the Paris killings, which killed 147 a year or so ago, the worst killing in Europe was carried out by Breivik in Norway, where he killed 77 people from the camp. He wasn't described as a Christian fanatic. He was described as being mentally unbalanced. So why is it that when the guy drives over the bridge here, he's considered to be a terrorist with a whole great aspiration, ideal, caliphate attached to it? Yet Breivik is considered to be mad. The issue that wraps into this is what's called multiculturalism. And that wraps into the refugees coming here and everything like that. Multiculturalism it's one of these 20-syllable words again, but essentially it was something where individuals or different cultures were within a nation, but they were defined through their cultures and not the nation. So there were many different nations happening within the nation, and there's a lot of debate about that. But as that developed over the past 10 or 20 years, I think it started during the Blair government, there has been a sort of more of a sense of being Sikh or Islamic or Buddhist or whatever it is, that because of the Muslim overtones in 2001 and everything, that becomes a crux of it. And I just wanted, there's a survey that came out about a year ago that within the Islamic culture here, only 34% would contact the police if they knew somebody that might have been carrying out an act. That might have changed in recent things. This was about a year ago. And 4% of them sympathised with the terror that was taking place. So what has come out of this, and I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, is that for some reason Europe has sent 6,000 fighters to Syria and ISIS in the past few years, whereas from a country like India, only 50 have gone. So there's some lessons to be learned from that, and maybe we can tease some out here. And then if we think back to 2001, the beginning of the war on terror, a 20-year-old suicide bomber, which I think is about the age of the people, the person in Manchester, would have been 3 years old in 2001. So these people that are being radicalized, that are growing up in our society, in our Western culture, as it were, something has gone wrong with the narrative and the story that we're telling. And I think what is happening here is that we are taking something that is basically a criminal act, often done by people who are either mentally unstable or, like me at the time, adolescent, frustrated at life, wanting a bit of adventure, hooking onto a cause or a higher moral good, and attaching that to a big cause that we think is an enemy to us here. And I think that that rhetoric needs to be toned down a lot, because the more we give a platform to people that are doing these things for all sorts of reasons, the more we create the kind of copycat type of thing, including sending them to prison, of course, where they get more radicalized, as it were there. So just to finish the thought there, it's not essentially about Islam. It's about a search for human dignity, where people feel that they have a role in the world, in their lives, that they can maybe make a difference to the world. They're part of a team, and that team is doing something good. And the reason that so many people go and join these different gangs and organizations is because that is lacking in the mainstream of their lives. And I think when we talk about, in my view, by calling it radicalisation, we're actually giving it a platform that it doesn't need. We should be talking about mental health. We should be talking about petty theft. We should be talking about human dignity. We should be talking about education. The term radicalisation in itself, and the talk of severe terror that is gripping our country, is giving a platform to something that, in my view, has existed through generations and centuries, and it's to do with whatever the current political trend is at the time. So at the moment it happens to be Islam. When I was growing up, it was the left wing and right wing, and at that particular time, the Muslim communities around the world were seen as a buffer against communism. And 20 or 50 years from now, it will be something completely different, but there will still be young men and women that want to be part of something that goes against society. Thank you.